everyone, I'm Jeff Cooper, and welcome to my game room. We're here in Jinx, Oklahoma, and we're looking at an accumulation that probably took me about 20-25 years to put together. I think I'm going to tell you a few tales and adventures of how I found some of this stuff. People wonder how I put this collection together. It didn't happen primarily with me breaking out the credit card or buying things on eBay. For me, this hobby started a long time ago. As far back, I think, as 1990, I was at a flea market and saw this dude with a big tarp, and he had a bunch of sealed ColecoVision and Atari 2600 games, and just decided this would be a good thing to start collecting. He only wanted a couple of bucks a piece for them, and at that point, once you started collecting back then, you have to understand there was no internet, there was no real connection between the few collectors that were around, so it was quite a challenge to understand what's rare. So my ex-wife and I got together and wrote letters to 5 major collectors we found in a fanzine called the 2600 Connection, and we had a list of what was known to be all the Atari games at the time, and we asked them if they would all rate them on a scale of 1 to 5. And we said, you know, you can do 2.5 or whatever. And we got all 5 of the collectors followed through, sent their ratings back, and we averaged them all out, and we came up with what we think is the first real rarity guide. And then I think we photocopied them and sold them for about $2 a piece. And, you know, it holds up pretty well. So, at the early stage, we have some sense of what's rare, and then how do you go about finding this stuff? Well, there was a lot around and about, just at, you know, flea markets and garage sales, and pretty soon we discovered the internet, and a lot that went on back then is very comical by today's standards, because none of us really knew what we were doing, and some of the trades that went down were just very funny. I can remember calling people and saying, you know, I traded you stuff of outrageous value, and they said, oh, I'm very sorry, and they would send stuff to even up the trade. This is, again, before money had anything to do with the hobby. So how do you get stuff if you don't have any money to spend? Well, I'll give you an example. These are the so-called adult 2600 games, the double enders from Play Around. And I was on one of those old video game .rec.org things via AOL, and someone was posting that he had double enders for the Atari 5200, and he wanted $2 a piece for them sealed. And of course there are no double enders for the 5200. I knew what he was talking about. He was talking about these. He didn't know what he had. Of course, that's kind of a good sign. So I asked him for his phone number, and I said that I'll explain what you've got here and how you want to deal with this, but you need to honor your $2 price offer with me. And he said that he would do that. I didn't have any money back then, and I think I spent about $90, but that got me an awful lot in the way of double enders. So, you know, I got all these for my collection for virtually nothing, and then I had tons and tons of trade bait, and that led to some of this other Atari stuff. Another little story for you. I have in my little case here a tooth protectors, and it's one of the very few known that's actually boxed and complete. How did I get this tooth protectors? Well, collecting as in international diplomacy, sometimes one side has a chip that means a lot more than the other side. Somebody might have something that doesn't mean a whole lot to them. I had found a KidVid controller at a flea market. It's a cassette player that Coleco put out. In fact, there's one in the box there. That you connected to your 2600, and it allowed you to interface the 2600 cartridge with cassette tapes. But again, all I had found was this cassette player, and I think it was used and $6 or something like that. And another collector found out and emailed and said, "I hear you have a KidVid controller," and I couldn't understand the fuss. And I said, "Yeah, I've got an extra one," and he said he wanted it, and what are some things you need? So I sent him my want list, and he said, I talked to a friend and I've come up with the tooth protectors. I said, well, that's great. And I didn't know exactly what I was getting. I thought, getting the loose cartridge would be a great thing. But it came complete in the box, so sometimes good fortune enters into it. A lot of these games, in fact almost all these games, are very, very hard to find in the box. And I owe an awful lot to fellow collectors who helped me out in putting these games together. These are people that I had connections with for many, many years. I have a good friend who was at a flea market, and he found all these and a lot, these and more, for $2 a piece. I think there were like 200 games. It included an incredible number of rares, and he paid whatever he paid, $500 or something like that. And his plan was to sell them on eBay. And I said, well, if you sell them all to me, I'll give you $1,500, and for no work you can instantly make $1,000. He knew that wasn't particularly a good deal, but we negotiated a little something, and he wanted to help me out. It's difficult because money has so infused its way into the hobby, but I have a lot of friends who have not necessarily put the cash thing first and have helped me out. I've also focused on video game collectibles. I have quite a shelf of Pac-Man and Frogger and Q*bert related stuff that I've accumulated over the years. And again, a lot that I've been able to put together as a function of the fact that I've been doing this for so long, and things were much more easily available back in the day than they are now. This Pong I simply found at a garage sale for $2. That translite there comes from McDonald's and their promotion in the 80s, and there's a little bit of a lesson there that it never hurts to ask. I saw that up on eBay, and there wasn't a whole lot of attention being paid to it, I think because it wasn't properly listed. So I wrote to them and said, I don't know, we take $35 for it, and they said sure. So something I thought I'd never be able to find or get, and I was able to. I also have a very small collection of arcade games, and again I was able to do this because back in the day arcade games were just sort of sitting around, and it cost so much money to license them to the city and license them to the state that people were practically giving them away. All these machines work. They're not on right now, but Missile Command, my favorite, the only video game I'm really good at. I have a Galaga. I did get this Pong, and I got that in Oklahoma City. It's something I wouldn't have been able to afford, but I called the guy and said, if you don't get it on eBay, you don't have to do commissions, you don't have to worry about shipping it, I can come right down and give you cash. And so he was able to come down enough. I was able to afford it. So most of you folks probably have some sense of what it's like to put together a very large collection of games. It takes a lot of time. It's very painstaking if you just can't get out the money and then buy 150 games at a pop at some kind of convention or off of eBay or something like that. But eventually, you know, the rarity guides came out in no small measure thanks to Joe Santulli putting lots and lots of collectors together through digital press. We created a network, and an awful lot of trading and buying and selling went through the growing classic gaming community, and I don't even know how many Atari games I have. I think about 530 different ones in the box. Why all the games in the boxes? And why that emphasis? Well, you know, I was at a flea market, and at the time I was also collecting 1960 stuff, and I saw a lava lamp, and the box was next to it, an old 60s lava lamp. I had about 4 of them, and I said to the guy, well, I already have a lava lamp, but I'll give you $5 for the box. And he kind of chuckled in a kindly way and said, the box is worth a lot more than the lava lamp. You probably notice I have this price very high. That's because of the box. And he gave me quite a lecture on the idea that when it comes to any kind of collectible toy, the box is worth a lot more than the toy. I guess this is an opportunity to point out that you make a lot of mistakes along the way as well. Over here in the case, you see that I have a sealed stack up, which I bought in the mid-90s in Taunton, Massachusetts at a flea market. The buyer had 4 of them sealed at $4 a piece, and I'm sure he would have taken $10 for all 4 of them, but at the time I thought, who would ever want more than one? Behind that stack up is a Cheetah Man 2. That was available through Video Game Liquidators in the 90s, and I was buying stuff for 3DO for them, and I just happened to scroll when they mentioned that they had Nintendo games as well, and I had a list of what we assumed was every Nintendo game ever made, and Cheetah Man 2 wasn't on the list. They wanted $20 for it, which was, at the time, given my family situation and everything, it was a lot of money. But I thought, well, maybe I ought to buy one of these, since I've never heard of it before. Certainly, I could have bought 10, but it never occurred to me for a second. To do that. I don't really regret the games that I didn't buy because I was short on money, but there were worse mistakes. Down at Old Mary's, people in the Oklahoma City area know they have an outside section there, and there was a fella who typically brought Nintendo out, and a lot of it. And one week he had 2 of the 3 Panesian games, and I think he wanted $20 a piece for them, and of course he would have bargained down. I only had $60 on me, and I thought if I spent $30 or $40, I really wouldn't have anything to spend for the rest of the day. Something that happened last night with people who were over here. I gotta save some money for the flea market tomorrow. But more than anything else, it was hubris. My attitude was, I see so many Nintendo games, I'm not going to pay $20 a piece for these, or even $15 a piece, because I will find these, and I will find them for $2 a piece. Well, it's been 15 or 20 years, and sorry to say, it hasn't happened. So I encountered this fellow whose mom and pop video game store had gone out of business, and he was trying to sell off his remaining stock. Drove out there, and you know, it was kind of wild. In terms of the test carts, there was apparently only one authorized Nintendo repair center in Tulsa, and they sort of went out of business as we moved on to the PlayStation and PlayStation 2, and they brought all their stuff to this guy's store and said, just take it. And it was in his back room. And, you know, I think I had a deal going that since I was buying in bulk, I could have whatever game I wanted for $1.50. And that just went in with all the others. Now, you know, it's not like there were hundreds and hundreds of rares at in the leftover stock. Most of the stuff was pretty common, but most of it was, you know, most of it was stuff that I could use to add to my collection. So back in the day, I was hitting flea markets just about every Saturday here, Oklahoma City. Did a lot of traveling in the Northeast, and went to flea markets every Saturday. I did my research in terms of where to find flea markets, where to find the best ones. And, you know, with that kind of persistence, every so often you would run into people who were selling games every week at the flea market, and then they were going to stop doing that. And, for example, they might have boxes and boxes of instruction booklets, you know, 400 or 500 of them. And they're basically getting out of this and ready to throw this stuff away. So I would say, you know, I'll give you $20 for all those instruction books. And they'd say, fine, just take them. And, you know, that's how I was able to find instruction books for a lot of the games. The fellow who sold me those test carts, that store had always kept their boxes. It was a trade-in store, and essentially you brought your cartridge and $5, they would give you another cartridge in trade. So they had to have a lot of stock on hand, so they bought lots of new games. And whenever they made a trade with you, they would only give you the cartridge. Even if you brought them a box game, they would keep your box game, and they would give you, they'd take a game out of the box and keep the box. So over the course of 12 years, they accumulated an enormous collection of boxes for the NES, and they just sat back there. And I eventually came along, and I bought all the boxes. And you know, I asked the store owner, why did you keep all the boxes? And he said, I just thought it was a good idea. I hope you've enjoyed this little tour of my game room, and hope you've enjoyed this little tour down memory lane. Collecting the games is a great hobby. It's a little bit more difficult now. It is a lot more expensive now, but there are still things out there, still things to be found, so persistence and keep on hunting.